Good morning again, colleagues, and a very warm welcome to our webinar this morning on developing a skills-first approach. We have 30 colleagues on the call at this point in time, and I'm pretty sure a few more are going to join us as we go along. But in the interest of time, and because we've got quite a tight agenda for today, my suggestion is that we get started and some of our other participants can join us as we go along. This morning's webinar is being hosted by the Mandela Mining Precinct. One of the programs within the Mandela Mining Precinct is called SATCAP. SATCAP stands for the Successful Application of Technology Centered Around People, which means that we are trying to understand how people relate to each other and how we interact with technology. And within the SATCAP program, one of the key strategic pillars is really looking at skills. And therefore, this webinar around developing a skills-first approach really fits squarely into the objectives of the SATCAP program. The Mandela Mining Precinct works with a number of collaboration partners to undertake its work, especially in the research space. And one of those partners is PwC. Another partner that was instrumental in this work was RIS, which is the Research Institute for Innovation and Sustainability. Some of our other partners that's involved in this work is SML for Change, and you can see some of the key partners, the strategic partners at the bottom of the slide, the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, the Minerals Council of South Africa, as well as the CSIR. So I think you've got a nice context for who you're being hosted by today and the work that's being done in this field in the mining sector. My name is Praleen Parkash. I'm a director in the PwC team, and my focus area is everything on people and organization. So developing skills, developing a skills-first approach is really central to everything that we do within our team. We would like the session to be interactive, so we are going to encourage you to use the chat function, and we'll try to monitor that as we go along. But you will also see in a moment when I share the agenda with you, you will see that there's a very specific section where we give you the opportunity to ask questions and interact with us. But we also have another opportunity where we've got some very specific questions through the Mentimeter platform. So we will be engaging you quite a lot and looking for your thoughts, your views around this particular topic as well. I'm now going to share with you the agenda so that you can see what you can expect in the next 2 hours. Okay, so what we've just covered now is the welcome and the purpose. And in a moment, I'm going to hand over to my colleague from PwC, Claudette Ramnarine, who's going to take us through our safety moment. Once we're done with that, Claudette and I will spend about 15-20 minutes giving you an overview of the skills-first approach. I think it's good for us to have a common understanding and some alignment around what the topic is all about before we delve into some of the detail. And we're very proud to then welcome our guest speaker for today, Dr. Busi Shabalala. She's the Group Executive of HR from African Rainbow Minerals. So we've got some gravitas today. I like the fact that there's a little bit of clapping happening there. So looking forward to Busi, who's actually going to share with us some of the fantastic work that ARM is doing with regards to developing their skills-first approach. That will be followed by a panel discussion, and I will introduce our additional speaker a bit later on as well. But a warm welcome to Puleng Maseko from Transnet, and I'll give you a rundown of Puleng's role and what she's going to take us through a little later on. Thereafter, we will engage in some discussion around your questions, what you want to know about, any insights that you'd like to share with us. And then that will be followed by a Mentimeter exercise where we'll ask you for your thoughts and some feedback. And then we'll just wrap up with a summary of what we've discussed today and close just before 11 o'clock so that everybody else can, run through their day. So I hope that meets with the expectations of the team on the call today. And I'm going to now hand over to Claudette. Thank you. And I really would like you to take in as much as you can and enjoy the session with us.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Praleen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Claudette Ramnarayan, a part of the PwC team. So safety in mining is a non-negotiable. It must be top of mind. So we would like to, focus on this for a minute, but just around, the safety moment is focused on moving beyond compliance to a zero harm culture. So when we talk about safety in mining, it's easy to default to rules, checklists, and compliance. And those things are important, they matter, they set the foundation. But true safety, the kind that delivers a genuine zero harm culture, really goes beyond ticking those boxes. So we really need to tap into the emotional, the personal, and the team-driven motivations of our workforce, because behavioral change doesn't start with rules, it starts with understanding the why behind it. Okay, so just a few examples. Your family and organization want you safe. So every person who walks into a mine has someone waiting for them at home. And as an organization, we share that same desire, and there are restrictions in there to protect your future. And injury today could mean no work tomorrow, sadly. And we often underestimate how quickly an ordinary task can become life-changing. One wrong step or one deviation from procedure or one distraction could suddenly change someone's future or make that look different. And then, just the third one, my brother's, every job is a safety job. So every role, every shift, every task really carries a safety responsibility. And then we speak about my brother's sister, or my brother's or sister's keeper. So mining is built on teamwork, so nobody works alone. And because of that, we all have a shared responsibility to look out for each other. So, we just wanted to share that safety moment just as a reminder to all of you to really just look at that zero harm culture. Perfect. Thanks, Praleen.
Thank you, Claudette. Just to set the scene today, just to get us into the spirit of the skills first approach, we're going to spend just a moment. It's a 2-minute video that we'd like to start off with, and then we'll go into our overview. So over to you, Claudette, to play our video. Thank you. Claudette, I cannot hear sound.
Okay, just give me a sec.
So whilst Claudette is organizing sound, I just want to share with you that we are sharing with you a video today. It is being hosted by the global PwC leadership team, but it's really just sharing with you our approach to skills first. So that will give us a little bit of foundation and a little bit of context in terms of our approach to developing skills.
The global skills gap is widening across industries, geographies, and organizations. It's not a problem that's going to be solved overnight, but there is a solution.
And the solution could have the power to impact 100 million people. Hopefully, we have your attention.
If you look at the way most organizations are structured today, they're structured in a system that's been created 70, 80 years ago, and it's served organizations well for so long, but it won't cut it in today's world or in the future. And so taking a skills-first approach, breaking down jobs into the component skills, enables organizations to see a much broader talent pool from which to hire.
A skills-first approach is focused on the skills and competencies a person has, rather than how they've acquired them.
I've seen a number of really good concrete examples of a skill-first approach in action. First, blind recruiting, taking away names, taking away background information, universities, schools, etc., and really focusing in on the skills the individual has in the context of being employed within your organization.
Another really good example that we see is looking at skills as a criteria for redeploying people, as we see that companies are constantly changing and restructuring, helps in retaining the workforce, helps in motivating the workforce. What excites me the most about the skills first approach is the opportunity it offers to make sure that as the world changes, you can still be relevant. You can actually upskill yourself, you can find out new opportunities, and it creates more equitable opportunities for people.
By adopting a skills-first approach, I think organisations will be able to access talent from diverse pools that they've not looked at before, and I think that's only a good thing.
Let's rethink
How we address talent shortages,
close skills gaps,
and create more inclusive labour markets.
Awesome. Thank you, Claudette. I think, colleagues, if you paid attention to that video, you will see that we are all functioning in organizations today that were actually structured like 70, 80 years ago. And it's definitely time for us to ask, are we still fit for purpose? Are we still relevant today? Do we have the skills that's required in this changing world that we live in? And I think another key message for me was that this is not particular to a geography. This is global. Every organization, every country in the world is going through the same transformation in the world. So we should all have this particular topic top of mind. And I really liked what the one individual said in the video. We should be focusing on skills. And if you look at our current recruitment processes in most organizations, we're always looking at what qualifications people have. And I'm not suggesting that qualifications are not important. They definitely play a role, but I just think that we shouldn't fixate on what qualifications people have. It's really about your relevance. It's really about how you apply yourself. It's about being able to learn and move on, etc. So I think it really does require a bit of a mindset change, but we should keep an open mind in terms of what's happening out there. So for our discussion today, we've got 4 topics. We've got 30 minutes between Claudette and myself, and these are some of the topics that we will talk about today. Why is skills development or skills first relevant today? What is our research saying? And then we will look at sunrise versus sunset skills in the mining sector, and then how can organizations be transformed? And I think that's the crux of why we're here today. Practically, if this is such a hot topic and if this is so important, then what is it that we can do to make sure that we deploy this skills first approach? But let's start off with the why. We'll go back to Claudette's message this morning. Why is safety important? We will ask the question, why is skills development, or why is a skills first approach so important and so topical today? So if we can go there, Claudette, we can get started. And we really just pulled out a couple of headlines from last week's publications. Okay, so this is really hot off the press. So you'll see the first publication here, which is talent shortage threatens expansion of data centers in Mexico. You'll see the date there says 19th of February, which was last week, Thursday, exactly a week ago, which tells you that in Mexico, that, they are really struggling to perhaps resource that data center because they're not finding the right skills in their marketplace. Then at the bottom of that screen, you will see 19th of February again, last week, Thursday, a survey that was undertaken showing hiring challenges that grow as skills shortage widens. Okay, this is actually taken in California. So in the US, once again, very different geography, different marketplace, but once again, a skills shortage that is widening as the day goes by. I'm going to first handle the article on the right-hand side at the bottom, and you will see there, that's the 18th of February, so last week, Wednesday. Talent shortage or record unemployment? That's the question. And that is, which is the real crisis in Luxembourg? So giving you a European example as well, once again, a very different geography, but once again, also tackling the issue, do we have talent shortages in our marketplace? And then what is top of mind and really affects all of us is the South African LinkedIn example there, asking the question on the top right-hand side, do we have critical skills shortages halting our business growth? So you can see here, colleagues, different geographies, but all of them talking about exactly the same issues. And I think the problem in South Africa is so much worse because we talk about a 31.4% unemployment rate. That's our latest stat that was released this week. 31.4% of our population who cannot find jobs, okay? But the question is, are they unemployable? Do we not have enough opportunities? Do we have a talent shortage because we've got people, but not necessarily the right skill set? So you can see there's a number of factors at play, but one of the common themes is that it seems like there's a talent shortage in the world. And then the other two little inserts that we've got on the slide here, the one on the left-hand side or my left-hand side, how skills visibility impacts your bottom line. And it's really important for us to know that we're not just talking about the people agenda. We're not talking about something that's a nice to have. The bottom line is that when you don't have the right skills in your organization, that impacts your bottom line. Okay, so your results, your productivity, your revenue, your performance, all of that is impacted by the fact that you don't have the right skills in the organization. Because very practically speaking, if you don't have the right skills in your organization, you cannot service your customers properly and you cannot have the right profit margins to be sustainable. And on the right-hand side there, 2 in 5 HR leaders acknowledge they don't know what skills they have in their workforce. And that's really, really worrying because if you've got a whole workforce, and think about it, some organizations are hiring 4,000 people, 20,000 people, banks are hiring 30,000 people. And imagine if you have this footprint of 30,000 people in your organization, but you actually don't know what you have. And we all know there's a whole lot of new skills coming into our marketplace. How do we cater and create a readiness for those new skills when we don't even know what we have right now? So that's what's really happening in our world today. That's the context. And I suppose that's the reason why this topic is so important. It's because of these headlines and this being our reality. So over to you, Claudette. You can share with us some of our research as well.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Praline, for setting the scene on that. So PwC has conducted a study called the Global Hopes and Fears Study, which engaged approximately 50,000 workers across 48 countries and 28 sectors. And following on from that study, we then zoned into the Africa perspective, where we surveyed about 5 countries. So that was your Algeria, Kenya, Morocco, Nigeria, and South Africa. So really just offering fresh insights into how employees view the future of work. So that's what I'm going to take you through now. So really just taking a moment to look at these key trends and how they compare to the global patterns as well. So what we're seeing is really strong momentum in AI adoption across Africa. So the weekly usage of Gen AI has grown by 4%, and a large share of employees are already seeing AI or using AI in their workplace. So even more encouraging is that there's 76% believe that AI is really improving their quality of work and will continue boosting productivity over the next few years. So really good insights there. Another positive trend is the skills growth. So workers report fast progress in developing new capabilities, and they feel they receive stronger support from their managers compared to the global peers. So this shows a healthy learning culture that organizations can continue to build on. At the same time, there's also expectations around pay and career growth, which is rising. So there are about 45% of employees that plan to ask for raises or promotions, and they are increasingly they increasingly value recognition, development opportunities, and meaningful workplace relationships. Okay, and encouraging insight is around trust and purpose at work, which is quite high and higher in Africa. So more than half of employees say that they trust management. There's a strong majority that feel there's a sense of meaning in their work. So also both higher than the global averages. However, we are seeing clear challenges when it does come to skills. So the skills relevance is becoming a concern, with many employees believing that their current skills may only remain relevant for three more years. So this really highlights an increase or a need for reskilling and upskilling. So gone are the days where we would talk about skills required for the next 10 years. It's really about what skills are required now for the short and medium term. Okay, so overall, this picture is one of really just high ambition, strong adoption of new technologies, and a growing trust. But also, we do recognize the real financial and skills pressures that need to be managed. Okay. So what we are seeing is that skills-first organizations are the answer. So the skills-first organization focuses on identifying, developing, and deploying talent based on skills rather than your traditional markers such as job title or degrees. So it's really about putting people and their skills at the center of work. So the insights discussed really reinforce why this approach is relevant and really essential for where we are now from a workplace perspective. So I will touch on a few points. You know, when we look at your the AI usage rising very quickly, this requires continuous upskilling. Skills-based organizations must prioritize digital literacy, ensure AI readiness, and human tech collaboration skills. So we have found in the study that employees are eager to learn about AI. However, organizations are not providing these opportunities or tools at a fast enough pace. We also see that the strong appetite for skills growth means employees will engage. So since employees show higher progress in skills building and feeling supported by their managers, organizations can leverage off this momentum to really scale up reskilling, mentorship, and even talent mobility programs. And just a third point on this, the short lifespan of skills means that we need to demand aggressive reskilling. Okay, so with many employees believing that their current skills will only stay relevant for about the next 3 years, skills first organizations must invest heavily in anticipating future skills needs, and this also requires monitoring trends, forecasting talent gaps, and rolling out continuous upskilling. Okay, but what we see if you look at the screen for a skills first organization, these trends really just signal that the workforce is ready. Technology demands ongoing capability building. Transparent skills-based career paths will meet employee expectations. So bringing in that agility and dynamic skills. Trust and purpose will help cement cultural and skills transformation. Reskilling is urgent, and learning must be accessible, personalized, and inclusive. Okay. So again, what do we mean by skills first approach? So the skills first approach is looking at that talent strategy and prioritizing a person's skills, capabilities, and potential. So in simple terms, it means focusing on what people can do rather than what they studied or what their job titles were in the past. Okay. So we also say that skills are relevant in every step of the employee life cycle. So in every organization, we have an employee life cycle or talent management cycle, if you want to call it that. But really, what does this mean for the employee? It really starts from attraction right until the employee leaves. Okay. So if we touch on attraction, so organizations will target a wider pool of candidates by emphasizing skills over job titles. Employees are matched to roles based on their strengths, not just their job titles, and emphasis on skills help one to really stand out with a better chance of landing a job because of the skills they've developed over time. Okay, if we look at performance and talent, so this is ongoing in the role. So skills are tracked and updated, helping the employee and manager to really identify those development opportunities to be able to move forward and work on those. Goals are also tied to the growing skill set, so not just the task that you're doing, which also helps to make performance expectations clearer. And then if we look at upskilling, so we know that upskilling is critical, but employees really just receive those customized learning paths aligned with career interests. Training is focused on developing key skills rather than your generic learning. And employees can also earn those micro credentials that really recognize progress in a motivating, bite-sized way. Okay, so this just shows us that at each stage of the journey, from growing to joining to growing to performing and being rewarded and even leaving, so organization really invests in abilities, creates clarity around development, and aligns opportunities to an employee's strengths. Okay, thanks, Praline. I'll hand over to you for the next section.
Thank you, Claudette. I think we've now got a good foundation, really understanding the whole journey around why skills are so important. You know, if you look at the workplace, as Claudette mentioned, we need our skills to be transcending, transitioning, transforming every step of the way for us to make a contribution. And needless to say that if we are looking at this transformation journey, you are going to find that there are certain skills that are going to become irrelevant. They are going to fall by the wayside. There are certain things that we don't need anymore that we did in the past. And we are going to find that there are new skills emerging in the workplace as well. So just think about it in terms of your own personal family. Very often, and I'm talking about 20, 30 years ago, somebody would come back home from work, sit down, read the newspaper. You know, that sort of lifestyle is not happening anymore. The skills that we used to have, lots of the manual skills, the heavy lifting and shifting, the very operational tasks, the repetitive tasks, the monotonous tasks, a lot of that is being replaced by AI and digitalization. So I'm going to share with you now what is happening in the mining sector specifically with regards to the sunset skills and the emerging sunrise skills. So if we just look at equipment, okay, as I mentioned a moment ago, what's becoming obsolete now is all the manual operations, with regards to driving trucks, hauling, loading, unloading, all of those particular activities are actually becoming obsolete. And they are being replaced now by autonomous systems. We've got autonomous haulage systems, meaning driverless trucks. We can have drills that are automated now. So in mining, our equipment has made a huge transition in terms of what we used to have versus what we have currently. When it comes to maintenance, it used to be a pure mechanical work without any digital skills. But now the skills that we are using in this field is really around sensor-driven predictive maintenance. And that really makes a lot of sense. It means that if we monitor our equipment over a period of time, we should understand what is the lifespan of this equipment. When will it require certain parts to be maintained? When do repairs need to happen? All of that predictive maintenance will make a huge difference to our lives, because it means that we don't wait for something to break down and then replace it and wait for replacement parts, etc. So that predictive stance towards maintenance is going to change our worlds. And then the software-based troubleshooting, really understanding what is it that we need to do to solve the problems in the workplace. From a workforce perspective, so looking at people now, the traditional extraction jobs are at risk of automation. And I think everybody knows that. It's been very topical in the mining sector, I would say, for the past 20 years. People fearing that every time we bring in a new technology or new system, new automation, that our jobs become redundant. And I think you've all seen the trends. You've seen the headlines in the newspaper. Unfortunately, that is happening, but it doesn't mean that the numbers are always going to dwindle. It does mean that we need to upskill so that we can take on the different responsibilities. So that will take us to remote operations and control center specialists, because those are the individuals that will tell us what is happening on the mine. You know, what does productivity and performance look like? Where are the challenges and the problems? So once again, quite a proactive stance to everything that we do in mining. Monitoring, you know, monitoring used to happen in a very manual fashion before, and now we've got drones that oversee our operations. We have AI, hazard analytics, and once again, you've got to have the people with the right skills to actually work with this equipment. From a sustainability perspective, if we look at the skills there, you know, any role that lacked ESG and compliance awareness is something of the past. We are now looking at ESG analysts, environmental scientists, renewable integration, and from a digital perspective, you know, the low-tech operational roles are now getting replaced with data analytics, with artificial intelligence and machine learning in mining. You know that we have a lot of digital twins telling us what is happening at the operations. We've got geographic information systems telling us what is happening. If you've got a global organization, you can monitor your global organization basically on one screen, and automation control. So colleagues, you'll see that I've picked up the pace a little bit, because Claudette and I probably have another 5 minutes or so that we'd like you to take you now through the very practical approach of saying, you know, how do we do this? Okay. So how can organizations be transformed? So how do we develop a skills first approach? Okay, now I'm going to take you through, we are going to take you through 5 key steps in this journey. When you listen to us taking you through these steps, in my personal mind, I really believe this is not a big, it is a big task, especially if you've got a big workforce, but it's not complex. It is really not complex. So step number 1, you know, start with the end in mind, which is really understanding what are those prioritized skill sets that you need. What are those critical skills that you need to make sure that you are an effective business? So that's where you need to start this journey. The second step is understanding what skills do we need. Okay, so really doing your intelligence around understanding it. And then what skills do we have? So your current reality of where you are, and then what are the gaps? So that's the gap analysis to really understand where is it that we need to build, borrow, or buy, and then what actions do we take? And we are quickly going to run through 5 slides that give you a sense of what this means. So step number 1, which is start with the end in mind. In any organization, you really need to understand what is your vision, what is your strategy, what is the ultimate goal of this organization, and what are those strategic objectives that you need to make sure that you get to that future desired state. And then what we do from there is really unpack what are the people goals to support this transformation, and then what are the skills that we need to make sure that we get there, okay, through our journey. And this is now a very internal focus in terms of an organizational view. And then you need to balance that with some of the external factors in the marketplace. And that is looking at your demographics. It's looking at the technology that you have in the workplace. You need to look at the systematic disruptions like climate change and some of our geopolitical events. And we all know about the tensions, Russia, Ukraine, you know, in the world, as well as some of the tax, legal, and regulatory elements in the workplace. So this is really the starting point on your journey to doing your skills first approach. Claudette, if you could take us to step 2, please.
Thanks so much, Praleen. So what skills do we need? It's really important that we look at mapping those critical activities. So we start by identifying the core activities that really just drive value in a role or business area. And this means understanding what work actually gets done. If we look at step 2, it's really around analyzing those skills. So we would break down the skills needed to perform each critical activity effectively. And these include your technical skills, your behavioral skills, your leadership skills, your digital skills. So putting that all together into a skills matrix, if you want to call it that. And then we prioritize the skills. So once the skills are identified, we look at, what are those urgent skills? How quickly do we need the skill in the organization? When it comes to effort, how hard is it to build, buy, or borrow that skill? So this process just provides a systematic way to identify and prioritize skills that really just matter the most to the business.
And then step 3 in the journey is understanding what skills we have in place. Now, there's several tools in the marketplace that we can use to understand what skills we have. And we can do this by also looking at a skills survey that we can send out within the organization. We can do self-assessment as a starting point, so people actually rate their own skills. Obviously, you've got to put the guardrails in place, so you provide some guidance and some direction in terms of how people rate themselves. You can also carry out 360-degree feedback. You can get a manager to do assessment on his or her team members. And you can also do skills assessments or exams as well. But this is an important step in the process for us to understand the skills at a workforce level, as well as at an individual level, and per function or department, exactly what skills we have as at now. And you can see on the right-hand side of this page or the slide, we've actually got, some of the data analytics there, so you can see exactly what is happening with regards to the skill sets.
Thanks, Praleen. And once we understand those skill sets, we then determine the gaps. So we really need to understand what are the gaps of the skills in the organization. So, as Praleen mentioned, you can run different assessments. We also use technology such as Workday or Sky Hive to really just track and consolidate skills and identify those gaps. But once we have those gaps in place, we then need to put together a workforce strategy. So really outlining how the company plans to have employees or place employees in the right roles with the right skills, but also to develop those employees. So based on the critical skills that you identified and prioritized, and then we compare that to what's needed in the organization, you'll have that gap analysis of what you need, and then put in strategic or make strategic decisions on how to build, buy, or borrow those relevant skills.
And then the last step in the process is the so what. We always say, okay, if you're going to go through these 4 steps, where does this take us? What does this mean for us? And at the end of the day, if you don't implement and if you don't action or execute against your plan, then you've actually just done a theoretical or academic exercise. So at the end of this exercise, basically what we need to do is to make sure that we mobilize our workforce so that people can transition from one role to another. We can map their careers. We can do succession planning. We can do reskilling pathways. So we really make sure that the talent that we have within the organization gets developed further, that we retain our top talent. It even assists us to identify who that top talent is so that you reward and recognize those individuals. So if you look at the whole talent management value chain, that's really what this whole skills first approach really does. And this is absolutely critical for us to make sure that we keep our top talent, attract the right talent in the workplace. And as you know, we're moving towards a gig economy, which means that not all our workforce needs to be permanent. Claudette and I both used the concept of build, borrow, or buy. Build means further develop your workforce. Borrow means that you can bring people through contracting or consulting, and buy means that you actually, hire top talent as permanent employees in the workplace. So organizations can deploy a number of different strategies in terms of how they want to do this. So I did say upfront, I don't believe that this is complex. The complexity comes in only when you've got a massive workforce to take through this exercise, but the steps itself is really manageable to get a skills first approach in place. So colleagues, I think that takes us to the end of the overview, and we are hoping that you have an understanding now of the topic at hand. What does skills development or a skills first approach refer to, so that we can now get an understanding of what is happening in the marketplace. And in particular, we have our guest speaker, whom I'm going to introduce now. Claudette, our presentation has disappeared. Thanks. So I'm going to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Busi Chabalala, who's the Group Executive of HR for African Rainbow Minerals. We are very privileged to have Busi on the call today. I'm going to call her a heavy hitter in the industry. She comes with a wealth of experience. I know, Busi, that you've been in this particular role now for about 12 years in your current role. And, you've got such a big wealth of experience and such a long CV. So all I've done here is really captured some of the relevant points for today's discussion. And then I just want to share with you that although Busi has an undergrad degree and an honors degree and a master's degree and a doctorate, I just took in some of the critical elements. I think the relevant one here is that if you look at her master's degree topic, it was around the transformational barriers against women advancement in South African platinum mines. So very specific, but it gives us, I'm sure, a wealth of information. In fact, I'm quite keen to have a look at that thesis. And then Busi also has a PhD in Commerce and Administration from Cranfield. And I also liked your topic there, Busi. It's achieving revolutionary transformation in South African mining industry through effective talent management. And I know that you served several committees and you lead or led national and international teams, which include teams in Africa, the United Kingdom, Europe, Switzerland, and the Indian Ocean region. And you've gained extensive experience in the following task teams, and some of the examples here is working with the United Nations on gender issues, skills development working groups, the Minerals Council of South Africa, etc., etc. So I'm not going to go through all the credentials. Our colleagues on the call can see it, but we're really pleased to have you here today. So a very warm welcome. And Busi's ask for today is really to take us through what is a classic example and a leading practice example of how the skills first approach is being adopted by ARM. So Busi, over to you to tell us your story around what you're doing in that regard and give us a sense of how successful you think you are. So over to you. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Praline. Am I audible enough?
You are. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. And I will just consider all protocol observed. As I've been introduced, I'm the Group Executive Human Resources for African Rainbow Minerals. We are a mining company and our operations are across nationally. We employ plus minus 19.5 employees, the number that has dropped from 26 subject to the commodities changes and the drop of the commodities in the sector. And with that, we had laid off quite a number of people, which is not a good story to tell, but yeah, it's just our reality. Getting to the topic today, and thank you so much for giving the context to the topic and putting such a nice program, quite insightful and thought-provoking. Given the topic today, I think I will first wear the lens of being the executive for African Rainbow Minerals, sitting in those boardrooms and debating issues on day to day. But my inspiration around the issue was really at the time when I was just post my master's, when I needed to do my PhD, and it was quite a mind-boggling question for me to say then, we've done everything that we need to do as the industry, we've got retention schemes, we've got everything that is there, what else? And interesting enough, everything happened, just post-COVID, because for me, COVID was also the test for the business to say that how agile are we? And having seen our success, through the COVID days, led me to aggressively and get to be robust in terms of debating and challenging the current status quo of the business in as far as skills is concerned, taking into consideration the whole digitization and the transformation of the business. And with that, I would really like to focus my conversation and this discussion around three themes. The first theme being the strategic imperative of the first skills approach, the second one being the initiatives that we have, where I will give practical examples, as well as the last one just touching on the cost and benefit of the initiatives that we've put in place. We looked at, to your point, Praline, in your presentation, you said begin with the end in mind. We looked at what is the ideal arm going to look like? And those discussions were taken up to the board level. We then established a skills development, talent model for the group, where we were actually starting to review the current skill set and also having an appreciation what we need to attract for the business going forward. We then put a model which is about an 8-step model from the time you get talent from in-school youth right to up to Center of Excellence as at the time when they're going to retire. And with that, we identified the current state and we put together the proposed solution for the business. And we then also talk about the envisage position where we want the organization to be. The process was really a very dynamic process. It changes as technology changes. It changes as the business changes. It changes as the economies as well as the world globally is changing. And we couldn't help it but to move along those. And in that context, what we did, we then realized that we cannot do it alone. We need to collaborate with other parties. We need strategic partners that can work with us as the board of ARM, as well as the executive leadership, to say that how do we get to be part of the voice of reason to support and to drive this initiative that we are so dearly kind of wanting to see in our business. Then what we did, we then partnered with 10 universities nationally. And in those partnerships, we developed MOUs. We also requested that we need some recognition in some of the boards as well as the seats in relation to influencing the curriculum, and we contributed meaningfully into the curriculum. And obviously, as the mining house, our first drive was to attract and make sure that we get the skills that are going to add value to our business. So we partnered with those institutions that have mining as a faculty and or any other specific business requirement that we may have, be it smelting and whatever. And through that, we have formed those collaboration. We sit in those boards to influence the curriculum, we contribute and we participate. But more than anything, we actually formulate a strategy to say that we need to attract talent from these places and make sure that that talent is equipped and it's fit for purpose. With that, we've developed over and above some partnership in terms of building, coming across with the concept of symposiums, where we were able as the company to get the professors from various institutions that we partner with, as I indicated that there's 10 in total, get them in one room and debate the issues of skills and where do we want to take this country in as far as the skills is concerned. Through those initiatives over and above, we then built in the workplace some leadership models that facilitate the change that we need. Let's face it, we appreciate that IQ is key. But when you look in terms of the world, of where the world is going in terms of effective leadership, you need your EQ to be right at the center of your business. So with the obsolete skills that are coming to play, having an appreciation of what we need for the business, we felt that the stakeholder relations becomes the most critical part of the business. And as a result, we then review the psychometrics that we are using to attract talent to say that if we get the right talent, do they have the right fiber in as far as people skills are concerned, to be in touch with people emotional being, to be in touch with psychological safety, to be in touch with the psychosocial of employees. And with that, we then put a model to say that we are going to incorporate additional psychometric to evaluate our people. We then went to, in as far to, through the collaboration with the educational institution, influence the decisions to say that why should a miner be at the mine to mine? One, but also why should be the miner be at the mine to be educated in mining? And what we did, we partnered with the University of Pretoria, where we have established a virtual conference center where simulations of the mine is displayed, and we demonstrate that, and our learners at the universities can, through that process, see what mining ought to be or what mining is. So the digitization and artificial intelligence really played in our favor, and I think the timing was so perfect. And as much as COVID was really, something that actually disrupted our lives, but it was a necessary evil, because it actually pushed us as the top leadership and executives of corporate to have an appreciation to say that you don't need people to be on the desk for them to do the work. We look at young talent, they're very agile, they want different things, they don't want job security, they're excited, they just want to be kept excited every day. So how do you create an environment that's conducive, that is also allowing them to be the best version of themselves? You need to be agile. You need to move with the times. You need to allow digitization and digital transformation to take course so that these people can actually succeed. If I look back of where we come from as a mining house, with all the challenges that we have with organized labor, with the discussions that we've put with organized labor forward in terms of the social contract that we want to interact with the workforce and get the organized labor to buy into our strategy. It was, I've never seen a strike for the 19 years I've been in this organization. That tells you that the ability to bring stakeholders on board across all levels, it's a key feature that business needs to drive those transformational goals that you see as important for your business. If organized labor wasn't on board, one, I wasn't going to have the ability to sign those MOUs with the universities to partner because it was threatening the skill set that we have, and it was threatening the jobs of the people. So if you put the business case forward to organized labor and you show them the benefits of what it is that you are trying to do, you are likely to get the buy-in. And fortunately, we've got the buy-in. The University of Stellenbosch, it's one of also our sister universities because they're very strong in the geometallurgical areas of our business. As you would appreciate, that part of our business is growing into new technologies from a smelt direct perspective. That partnership has also allowed us to actually be the voice and have the voice in terms of the skill set that we require as the business. So needless to say that our focus will continue to drive the initiative that we see as the business. We have an appreciation of understanding that there is a need of a paradigm shift. We can't do what we used to do 20 years ago. We need to change. And fortunately, I've got a very agile, young, talented team of leaders, which are emerging leaders. One of the institutions that we are partnering with to develop those emerging leaders is Wits Business School. I have a cohort every year where I take about 20 plus workers from the workforce to those. And we were also fortunate to be actually, due to the partnership that we've developed and the input that we've been giving over time in terms of influencing the curriculum, we've been fortunate that one, they're considering to build in practical course on mining, and we are busy signing off the modules to that. For me, that is just groundbreaking to be in that space and to have that ability to influence at that level, where the business school is happy to understand your world and actually shape up the future for your world to be successful. So with that being said, I think I would like to move to the second point of my agenda. Please, Preline, tell me if I'm just eating too much time so that I can sum up. Okay, my third point.
Yeah, so sorry, Busi, we did put in the slides, that you wanted to talk to provide an overview to our colleagues today.
Sure.
So we can also go through your 3 slides, and we're happy to give you another 5 minutes, so not to worry.
Awesome. Preline, I have already spoken to the slides because these things come natural to me. But the slide in question that you've put forward, if you can check on the in the middle. If you can check in the middle, I don't know if my cursor shows if I move it across. Can you see the movement of my cursor?
No, we won't be able to because it's Claudette's screen that we're sharing through. But maybe just to, let's talk us through it, or Claudette will show us where you are.
Sure, no worries. But essentially why I thought this was going to be very critical, I did touch on it in terms of that the skills development is one conversation that resides right at the center of top executive. And with that, it's part of our strategy, and our strategic thrust number 3 speaks to learning and development. And learning and development basically has unpacked the journey that I've spoken to in terms of what we've done and what we are doing. The second part of the slides, Preline and colleagues, speaks to the model that I talked about in terms of attracting talent from in-school youth and develop them to the point where they become part of the center of excellence. When they become part of a center of excellence, that's when they have adopted everything they need to know to do their job, and they are quite comfortable in their spaces. And then we start transferring the skills back to the business so that by the time these people retire, you've got a very grounded talent pool and talent pipeline. So with that being said, I would like to move to my last point, which speaks to the cost and benefit of taking this approach as a business. The cost for training and development, as recorded in my previous financial year results, was that we've spent over 440 million in skills development. And as mining houses, you'll appreciate that partnering with the MQA and everyone else, we get back the rebates, and we can still reuse and recycle that money to actually retrain. So with that being said, the benefits of that is when you train with a purpose, when you train to develop the skills for sustenance of the business, you probably find that your retention rate dropped about 5 to 10%. I mean, increases about 5 to 10%. So we've had a very low staff turnover. Our retention has always been sitting around 3 until the Section 189s that we have, that it increased to about 9%. But I've seen that with the last quarter reporting, we are coming back to actually get to the normality of the retention, and our turnover has dropped once more, and it's sitting at around 6.2%. The moral of the story is, if you do the right things and you begin with the end in mind, you are likely to achieve your goals. I want to also just give some kind of color and flavor to this topic to say, one of our strengths was the fact that we identified the model that is going to support the business. And through my thesis for my PhD, we developed a value-based talent management framework. The value-based talent management framework is right at the core of our business vision, goals, and strategic focus going forward. And as I spoke about the learners and the development, I want to also bring the element of psychological safety in terms of what we've created for sustenance and what we've created for these learners to have a sense of belonging and sense of worth. We run the Buzzer Ambassador program across the group. We run them twice per annum. Through that's where we start the conversation about the future of the individuals, but more than anything about the future of the individuals as to how they fit into the bigger picture, which is the corporate culture. And with that, we offer them psychosocial support. We've seen what COVID did in terms of the numbers from an academic perspective. We offer them support from engaging with the psychologist if they have any learning problems, getting back to us as the employer. We have discussions along career discussion panels where we identify where are the gaps, what are the things that they're grappling with. And we take that opportunity of career discussion panels also to showcase the skill set that these people are going to bring to the organization if we keep them excited, if we keep them retained, if we pay them well, if we reward them well, if we create an environment that's conducive to them. Let's face it, mining is difficult. It's always been said that mining is not for sissy. And yes, we acknowledge that mining is not for sissy, but I believe that with the right level of leadership, with the right moral fiber, as well as the right level of EQ, we can take this conversation going forward and make a success out of the industry. With that being said, I would like to pause there, because I can talk the whole day about this topic. I am very passionate about it, and I really want to continue to remain to work with yourselves and other organizations like the Mineral Councils and all other supporting organizations to make a change that this country needs. And I want to believe that we are on the right track. And thank you so much to everyone for actually giving me your time and ears. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Busi. I think there's a lot of clapping from the participants of the webinar. And I think that there's a good couple of lessons learned there, a lot of insights that you shared with us. And what Claudette is showing us now is the fantastic work that African Rainbow Minerals is doing with regards to the talent management strategy. You know, you can see a whole lot of mapping and strategic levers in place. So this journey around skills first at ARM is a very intentional, very deliberate design. And you can see that, you know, things don't just happen without a plan. It is absolutely key that there is a plan in place to make sure that skills development happens. But I do see a hand up, and
yeah, that's me, Praline. I thought that what I haven't really spoken about is our LinkedIn handle. Please, can people just go on our LinkedIn to see the activities that we are driving across the issues of skills and how we actually penetrating the structures and the environment.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Busi. That was really fantastic. I think one of the key outcomes of your discussion is really this whole balance from a skills development perspective, we definitely need the IQ. We definitely need the technical skills in the industry, but we also need to balance that with the soft skills as well. We call them soft skills, but as my boss always says, you know, soft skills are sometimes the hardest to achieve because it's, you know, it's the empathy, it's the interaction skills, it's the interpersonal skills, and that doesn't always happen naturally. So sometimes, you know, organizations do need to spend to make sure that we've got these well-rounded individuals in the organizations that don't just want to do it on their own, that can take their teams with them on this journey of change so that we can achieve success. But I think that's great for us to understand what ARM is doing in this regard. And we're going to now go on to our next agenda item. I see that people are dropping off due to time constraints, but thank you very much for joining us if you do have to drop off. We do have another hour, roughly an hour to go, and I'm going to take this opportunity now to introduce you to our panel. We still have Dr. Busi Shabalala on our panel, but I'm going to introduce you very quickly now to our other panelist today. And our other panelist is Ms. Puleng Maseko. We wanted to bring in a different perspective. So Puleng is actually the head of learning enablement and compliance at Transnet Academy. And this is very intentional because we want to also understand, you know, apart from mining, what else is happening out there in industry? What are some of the cross learnings? And we're hoping that Puleng will be able to take us through exactly what it is that they're doing. But just by means of introduction, Puleng brings with her over 35 years of experience from different industries. And what I'd like to reflect on is that Puleng actually started off as a teacher. She transitioned to a lecturer and then joined corporate about 26 years ago. So, you know, if we're talking about upskilling and reskilling ourselves today, that is a phenomenal journey of transformation in terms of your own personal career. And the other point that I'd really like to reflect on today is that if I look at your current role at the Transnet Academy, Puleng, you know, your responsibilities include curriculum design, you're looking at assessments, quality assurance, accreditation, risk, skills reporting, compliance, and governance. And for me, that's, you know, spans across the learning and development and talent management value chain. So, you know, I'm hoping that you'll be able to give us a little bit of insight in terms of how you manage all of these various responsibilities. I also want to reflect on the fact that Puleng is critical and instrumental in the establishment of the Transnet Academy. So I'm hoping that you share with us a little bit about what the Transnet Academy is all about and, you know, what is your contribution in that regard. So a warm welcome, Puleng.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Prelim.
No, it's a pleasure to have you. I'm going to start off with our first question because we've just heard very little about Puleng. I think Busi has already taken us through the African Rainbow Minerals journey. So let's give Puleng the opportunity to describe what the Transnet Academy is doing with regards to the Skills First initiative. Okay. Thanks, Puleng.
Thank you so much. Let me first maybe share with you Transnet Academy. Where does it fit in within a Transnet? So we probably all know Transnet as a big organization with 7 operating divisions, and there is a lot that is happening due to the rail reform, where we have seen the establishment of what we call TRIM, Transnet Freight Rail Infrastructure Manager, which is a separation of the rail infrastructure portion from the operation side. Then it became a standalone division. We also seeing changes where the National Ports Authority in future is going to be an independent port authority outside of Transnet. So the process is still unfolding. Now, the Transnet Academy It's a learning leg which was established as a result of integration of the then schools of excellence. So there were 4 schools of excellence that were reporting to different divisions. There was a school of excellence for Transnet Freight Rail. There was a school of excellence for Transnet Engineering. Transnet Port had its own school, which would service the terminal and the maritime, and Pipeline also had its own school. So we integrated those schools and established a Transnet Academy. But it wasn't just that integration. We had a clear mandate from the board to reposition the skills development such that then we come with a proper approach to learning and development, whereby we will provide the best of class operational, technical, and functional, as well as leadership development. And that's where I play a very instrumental role. And I'm happy to say that it's been 4 years that we have successfully been operating the Transnet Academy. So now back home, Transnet Academy then has 6 portfolios. So we operate like universities. We have 4 faculties: the Faculty of Engineering and Pipeline, Faculty of Leadership and Functional Development, Faculty of Port Terminal and Marine, Faculty of Rail. Then my portfolio, Learning Enablement and Compliance, as stated, as well as corporate services. In the Transnet Academy, we have plus minus, we are between 650 staff complement, if I remember well, servicing Transnet, an organization of plus minus 50,000 employees. We also have, as part of our strategic imperative, to generate revenue. So some of our clients, we render service to the over-border Africa out there, the rail sector in Africa, as well as the ports, because we have to generate revenue for the organization. Our footprint is across all provinces in South Africa. So in a nutshell, this is who we are. The Transnet Academy, what role, the strategic role that we play in the organization. I thought, let me first share with you who are we, so that then when we engage, we understand the magnitude of the issue that we are dealing with. An organization that contributes to the GDP of South Africa, one of the state-owned organizations that is undergoing reform right now. I think the introduction is more than maybe what was expected. Prelim, thank you.
Thank you, Puleng, for the background and the context of the Transnet Academy. We'll go to Busi once again. Busi, I think you took us through quite an elaborate journey around how you're adopting and developing the skills first approach. But, you've been on this journey for quite some time now. And I think what we'd like to hear from you, so that we don't make the same mistakes, in other organizations who are starting their journey now, what are some of the key lessons you have learned from your journey thus far?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Prelin. I think it all starts being very bold as an HR person and having an appreciation to say that you are in that position because you have to be the voice, of reason to the business. We can choose to come to work and do the bare minimum and go home. And when I talk about bold in this context, I talk about bold about one, challenging the status quo and having the ability to influence. And what I've learned really through my journey, through this process, is that collaboration is very key. Partnership, negotiating with the stakeholders that matters in your business. I can't stop talking about being emotionally in touch with the realities of the world, and also being emotionally in touch with what ought to be in the business. We discipline people every day because of their conduct. We lose good people with good skill set because of the misconduct. And the reason that we get to that level is because as business, we don't educate people enough in terms of the EQ side of things, which creates a bit of a challenge and imbalance in the ecosystem. When you look in terms of my journey in particular, because it becomes a very personal thing, my journey was really driven by the legacy. I always say to young talent in the organization, especially when they getting these good positions and they progressing very well in their careers, I always say, you have been given an opportunity to make a difference. What is your legacy? So if anything for me, throughout this process, it's really my legacy, which I'm gladly supported and embraced. And I will never look back. I do not think that there's anything that has cost me any emotional instability that I couldn't do it. I want to believe that once you've got your mind and your heart at the right place, and driving your passion becomes just easy. I've just dropped Puleng a note to say, Puleng, please contact me because we also want an academy. That's one thing that I have been preaching, and we have started engaging people who can help us to establish an academy, and I'm very excited about it. But I'm looking in terms of where I'm going. I'm 5 years to retirement, and I've got 5 years to make sure that this organization has its own in-house assessment center, as well as the academy. With the assessment center, I am pushing aggressively very hard to have the conversation around the 9-box matrix, to have the ability to identify talent and nourish those skill sets that we want, and also empower and embrace the current skill sets that we are having within those individuals. So my journey has been very interesting, Prilin, but more than anything, I think my journey has given the organization quite a lot of mileage and leverage in terms of branding from a people aspect side of things.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And you know, I like the fact that you are acknowledging that even though you've come so far on your journey in developing a skills-first organization, there's still further work that you have in that regard, and the establishment of an academy, perhaps, or reaching a status of maturity in your assessment center. You know, all of that is still work in progress, still work to do. So, you know, there's never a time that we can sit back in this world that we're living in, where there's constant change, where we can say, okay, we've reached that pinnacle point. And I think that's what upskilling is all about. You know, it's about unlearning some of our own old ways, and it's about adopting the new, and really striving for more all the time. A question for you, Puleng. I think I just want to reflect a little bit on the marketplace. You know, what comes to my mind is that Transnet was mentioned very specifically yesterday at the budget speech as well, you know, as an organization that's on its way to reform. We've seen some really great success stories in Eskom recently. So I think, you know, our public sector is definitely making huge strides in this regard. But when we look at that particular point, I just wanted to ask you, you know, do you see any hurdles that are holding us back in the South African marketplace to achieving a skills-first organization?
Thank you so much, Prelim. Look, the issue of skill development remains a challenge for as long as we are in this environment. Much as, yes, there were good things that were said, they come with hard work on the background. The challenges that remains, it's an issue of experience paradox, if I can put it that way. that skills mismatch between training and the labor market. It still remains a problem. Even as companies drop degree requirements, and let me articulate what we did. So a few years ago, and of course with the establishment of the academy, we had challenges, of course, with the skills that we needed, and in the organization of 100 years, we still had people that have experience. They can do the work with their eyes closed, but they just don't have this piece of paper called diploma or degree. Now, our recruitment policies would say for you to be a what, you must have a diploma plus so many years experience or a degree. Now we are in an organization of 100 years where a person started working. It used to be like a family organization. My father would have worked here as a result of his father having worked, and so on, and the whole family is working here, and they learn the experience on the way. And along the way, maybe they never accumulated a degree or a diploma. Now, environment has changed. We come and say, no, you need to have a degree. So what we did in the past years, we introduced, and this was as a result of a benchmark with SASOL, we introduced recognition of current competence framework. So we still kept a requisite of the qualification plus the skill. But there was this specific environment where you would not get a degree from university that would produce a train driver that would come today and get on a food plate and push a train. You would not get that. When they come from university, we still have to put them through a course or a program, practical training, 2 to 3 years, which becomes costly to the organization. Now, those guys that have been long in the organization, they would not get promoted. Their career mobility would be stuck to becoming the juniors and the assistant, but they can do the job of their seniors. So with the recognition of current competence framework, then what we did, we increased the number of experience that you have and lessen, if not take away, a qualification. But we went through a measurement exercise to say what will equate a degree plus 3 years experience. Maybe it will be 8 years experience in totality, but we put you through a program, because if you're going to assume the next level where you manage people, then you need to know how to manage people. You are a supervisor, you must know the thinking and those kind of things. So an experience paradox, this is a classical example of what we did. There was no such a training. Another thing I can talk about, which is a hurdle, is emerging digital experiences that are coming in that particular digital field. And our speaker, Dr. Buzi, has touched, I've been taking notes on some of those emerging digital experiences, the likes of AI. We talk about it, but I don't think we've really nipped on the bud to say what it is and how do we get it. We're all aware, we've woken up to AI, we have it in our gadgets, we are using it right now for taking notes, but do we really understand and apply it to a point where we see value for money, value for our investment? And I'm talking as someone who's also leading a learning management solution, driving a system, driving AI. What can AI do that people cannot do? So AI is one of those, automation is one of those. Cybersecurity, we've got an experience of having hit hard by a cyber criminal. So we've got that as a shortage of skill. We've woken up to that. Data analytics, we're sitting with a lot of data that need to be translated into helping us making decisions. So these are some of the hurdles: the experience paradox, a shortage of critical skills, and perhaps also our ability to build a proper pipeline at the right time. There's also some of the hurdles that I can think of. We happened to have a discussion at the board level, and we were asked whether we have enough skills, which talks to these hurdles, and do we even know what our critical skills are? And at some point, the board chair asked that we're going through a lot of reform, the partnerships, the joint ventures, and those kind of things. Do we even have enough skills where people know how to negotiate within joint ventures? These are some of the emerging skills, and we really have to invest a lot of time. A hurdle that talks to that is that the environment has changed. So it's us that we also have to change. Are we moving at a pace where we are able to respond to the changing landscape? Is a hurdle.
Thank you, Puleng. I think, some really good insights. And I think, what's coming to the fore is that there are certainly some practices that you had to relook at, especially if you are developing a skills-first approach. You cannot have these very strict requirements around qualifications. You've got to recognize prior learning as well. You've got to factor that in, and that's exactly what the skills-first approach is about. Let's recognize people for what they bring into the workplace. What is their current ability? What is that capability? What value add can they provide? All of that is far more important now than the number of degrees that somebody brings. So not taking away from those of us who have the qualifications in place, but it just means that we do need to recognize that people are following different paths in their careers, and we need to acknowledge what they bring to the workplace. Busi, I'm going to change direction slightly now. And I know that even if I just reflect on your thesis, but more importantly, the work that you're doing at ARM, what is how are you addressing the Women in Mining initiative, and against the context that women were not even allowed underground, prior to, I think, 1994. Our legislation precluded us from lots of jobs. How are you managing that in the mining sector?
Thank you, Prilin. Firstly, I think, in as far as that goes, I think I need to acknowledge the Mineral Council for the guidance that they've given us over years, as well as our Department of Mineral and Petroleum, for putting the agenda on the table and actually pushing us as employer to do the right thing. We were fortunate or unfortunate, but then for me, every downfall, I try to find ways of making success and turning it around to the positive. We were at some point named and shamed by the Gender Commission. It's in the public domain for lack of transformation in as far as getting one woman in the workplace. And for me, the narrative was just incorrect. You can't get them in the workplace. Are you creating an environment that's conducive, and are you providing that psychological safety? So with that exercise, they did a biometric study of some sort in 2015, and the results came out in 2018. And with that, I had no option but forced to actually engage the business to put action plans to change how we view the issue of women in mining. And through that, we have put a number of initiatives. We evaluated our change rooms in terms of, are they comfortable for women? Are they providing that safety? Are they located in right places? Just as an example, we created things like the rooms for moms who are breastfeeding to actually have the opportunity during the time of the day to go there and do whatever they have to do to look after the little one. Some of the mining houses created facilities for women so that kids can come with at the workplace and, you know, drop them, then pick them up later, so that there is no challenge in terms of, you know, having to worry about your children. But from a technical point of view, in terms of progression of women in mining, my statistics speaks for itself in terms of where we come from and where we're heading. That's more on a numerical data. I am more concerned about the substantive part of this conversation, because the substantive part talks to the environment and how conducive is this environment to retain these women. We have what we call as part of our corporate culture, the Pulse of Arm. And through the Pulse of Arm, we open ourselves up. We become vulnerable as the leadership to be given feedback across all spheres of business. We have created that to be one of the initiatives that we drive, so that we can hear the views of the people, how they feel, in particular women. From a skills point of view, we have developed partnership with Henley Business School, where I've had a cohort of plus minus 30 who graduated to take them through the leadership development program. In my intake for the graduates, in my intake for bazaars, in my intake for the cohorts that I build for future leadership, I make a concerted effort to say that from a demographic point of view and gender-based point of view, I will attract more women to address the imbalances of the past. So it's something that it's quite known. It's policy statement. It's standing as a policy position to say that this is where the business is going. Then I will just take an opportunity to touch on women, but then touch on that within the context of over and above the marginalized group, which speaks to people with disability. We have, as the group, partnered with an organization called Progression to just facilitate bringing in women with disability as well as people with disability across to our business and become the employer of record by recording them and affording them the opportunities through skills-based initiatives for them to apply themselves in various spheres. We all know that disability is a big definition. We've got cognitive disability, we've got disability as a result of physical or hearing impairment, whatever it is. We look at each disability as a project. And as we bring the person to the workplace, we make sure that the environment is conducive. We allow them the opportunity to be developed. We get them to go back to their communities to add value and to be integrated as part of the broader community. How we went about it, we did an impact study across our mining operations to see who are these people and where are they. We know that historically we will be embarrassed having somebody who's got a disability at home, will hide those people. And through the Department of Social Economic Development, we were able to actually get quite a good number. And it's amazing how the programs across our operations has now gotten the people to voluntarily come out to say, I've got this form of disability, I need to be empowered by the mining house. So when you look in terms of the marginalized group, we've got to be intentional about it. We've got to be deliberate. It's just one of those drivers that you can't afford to be mediocre about. You know, you just need to be there and be deliberate, because business is concerned about the bottom line. So if you're starting telling them about the people with disability, they want to know what's in it for them. And what was in it for my business was the fact that if we're an employer of record, you can upgrade your scoring from a DTIC perspective in terms of your requirements, as well as from your mining charter requirements, where we are required to achieve 1.5%. So from a women in mining perspective, as well as marginalized group, I think that it is very imperative of employers to start thinking out of the box and also use the opportunities before us to leverage that position. So I think my journey, I started the Women in Mining. I forced the guys to actually get to buy pink scarves for the ladies in the workplace, because you've got to be symbolic. But you have to do things that are very symbolic and exciting and get everybody to participate and be part of it. When I've got a Women's Day in this organization across all my operations, the gift that goes to me as a female employee goes to my core colleague, wife or spouse or partner at home. Because what we are saying, you are embracing women in mining beyond just the workplace. So it's one of those that you can't afford not to think out of the box for you to get traction. And from an ARM point of view, as I've said, that my stat speaks for itself, which I don't really count much. I count in terms, is my environment conducive? Am I providing psychological safety? Are my policies wearing a gender lens to make sure that women fit in and they feel that they belong? So it is in that context that I really feel that if you're not passionate about these things, it becomes difficult for you to drive them. You've got to have that end in mind, Prilin. I can't overemphasize that end in mind conversation. You've got to have that so that you can be able to drive these initiatives successfully. And talking
Sorry,
to...
Busi,
Yeah.
we are actually pressed for time. And
Sure.
I know that you and I have had some lengthy discussions about this, and I know that you're doing some fabulous work, and I can hear the passion coming through, and, you know, the participants are loving what you're saying. But I definitely want to also hear from our participants today. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to, you know, just pause there. Okay.
Sure.
Puleng, I'm just going to be fair to you to ask the last question for the panel discussion today. But if you don't mind, if we could just spend an hour, a minute, please. You know, in your opinion, what is that one critical factor that we need to focus on to drive success in skills development?
Okay, clear alignment between industry and skill development efforts. We cannot work in isolation. We need to work in partnership and collaboration, all of us involved, the industry, so that then we determine the priority skills together, we validate the competence together, we create real pathways into jobs. Now, as a curriculum designer lead, when industry demands drives curriculum, when industry demands drives assessment and work exposure and skills, skills development becomes both relevant and impactful. Those are my closing remarks. Thank you very much. And maybe let me also take advantage of this to say we are very big on youth development in Transnet to an extent that we have a dedicated youth development framework where we focus on a proper pipeline. We've got a pipeline for graduates in training. We call it youth professionals in training, not graduate in training. Most organizations use that. We've got a fraternity of engineers in training, technicians in training. We provide diverse work integrated learning. We give bursaries to full-time. We've got learnerships. We've got a dedicated program. We've got internships for the CAs, a vast program with regards to that. And also lastly, the impact that we've made in the industry has seen us through. We, on 2 years successively, have scooped awards, 11 awards the previous year, and 8 awards 2025, 24, 11 awards at an industry level at TITA because of the work that we are doing. Contribution to the young development programs, artisan, the bursaries that we put through people, the university work that we do with them. So it's a lot that we invest in. On an annual basis, our budget amount to 800 and something million. We are a #1 contributor with TITA, so our contribution in the industry is visible. Thank you very much.
Awesome, awesome. I really like that, Puleng. Thank you very much for the insights. And we do have a number of students on the line as well. So, that was very encouraging. There's certainly opportunities out there through bursaries, learnerships, roles, especially in engineering. I would imagine a lot of roles in the IT fraternity as well. So thanks for those insights. A big thank you to Puleng, a big thank you to Busi. Thank you very much for all the insights and learnings. And I think we take away quite a lot from you. I've jotted down a couple of pointers which we'll summarize towards the end. But let's go forward, Claudette, to our next topic now. Colleagues, this is your opportunity to engage with us. We just want to find out from you, is there anything that you want to comment on? Do you have any queries or questions for our speakers today?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Bongani, please go through.
Yes, yeah, my name is Bongani. I'm from the West Mining Institute. I'm a PhD student under SATCAP. I just wanted to find out from Busi, is there in place any form of coordination between mining companies and training providers in assisting mine workers to transition from manual forms of work to digital forms of work? And if so, how effective is the coordination in actualizing the reskilling and upskilling of mine workers so that they cannot be relegated to casual work in this age of technological advancement? I'm trying to link this to my study, which focuses in coal to renewable energy transition and how to create sustainable roles for entry and intermediate level coal mine workers to transition into solar. I mean, these two cohorts are subjected or they're exposed to job displacement, and they constitute like 70% of the coal workforce. So if we scrap them out, how effective are these training providers, and are they assuring them sustainable roles in renewables?
Thank you, Bongani. Thank you for the question. Bongani, I did touch on my presentation that we have partnered with the institutions of higher learning, and we also part of the team that influenced the curriculum. With that being said, we have taken note of the number of positions that we have across our mining houses that needs to be reskilled as opposed to just laying off people. And we are taking the RPL approach, and Puleng touched on it, as part of the journey to make sure that we don't lose the talent of your traditional mine worker. Because at the end of the day, we can debate how they are contributing to the economy. Mining requires people to mine at the mine. However, with the technology that is now taking place, we have seen that we can have other methods of mining. We don't need to stick to that traditional mining. And with that being said, that's where the whole social impact conversation comes very relevant, where we start renegotiating with organized labor to see how we can reskill the group in question. In as far as the service providers, Bongani, I wouldn't really be able to respond to that because I am not in the front of identifying the service provider, but it's something that I will take to my next forum with my colleagues in the HR forum to see how can we play a role to influence in that space. And if maybe through Prelin, you can leave your contact details so that we can take the rest of the conversation offline.
Okay, I'll do so.
Thank you. You can just put your details, maybe email or something on the chat if you don't mind, Bongani. Alternatively, share it with Prelin. But I would like for us to have this conversation beyond this point.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bongani. Thank you, Busi. Really appreciate your response in that regard. Let's go to Thiru.
Good morning, Praline, and thank you so much for a very, very informative session. Thank you to Busi and Peleng. I'm Thiru. I also work on the SATCAP program. I'm part of the RIS team. My question to Busi and Peleng is, with the circular economy being one of the critical drivers within the industry in mining in various various commodities, etc., and transcending different areas, how do we look at a skills first approach in embracing circular economy, the kinds of opportunities that it can bring in for the mining workforce, and what are the, has like ARM and Transnet thought about, where do they put this in their priorities of skills matrix? Thank you.
Okay, I can go first. You're raising a very, very important question that we are navigating. I think the best approach is that we should not be fixated in doing things the same way that we're doing. We got taken aback during COVID. COVID was a wake-up call to say we've been so relaxed and doing things the same way over and over again. I'm going to use a case of where we are in Transnet. There's so much reform that is happening. We've entered uncharted territories. There are instances where we have answers. There are instances where we don't have answers. Now, where we don't have answers, I always say to my direct reports, this is where resilience comes in. Go out there and look for answers. Now, these are the session that we are at today is one of those sessions. We are exchanging notes. So I'm not answering you directly to say it's ABC, but I'm saying there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. Where there's no formula, we just go in that uncharted territory. Our approach, of course, would be calling Busi, calling Prelim and say, how are you doing this? And you find that there's commonalities. In some instances, there's nothing. We think together. We think together. So the economy has changed completely. We wake up tomorrow, it's business unusual. So we take a resilience approach. We take a risk-based approach to respond to the unknown. That's how I can respond to you. Thank you.
If I may come in there, from an ARM perspective, we've got a very clear ESG matrix that helps us to put those targets in terms of in terms of our future plans and the pathway that we want to develop from, in terms of dealing with issues like carbon emission and all that. And every manager, especially the general manager at the mines, as well as the chief executives, have contracted from a KPI point of view in terms of how are they going to reduce all those things that are impacting the economy and the environment. Over and above that, if you can have a glance on our annual report, there is a scorecard that's developed for the top leadership team and executives where we are contracted in terms of what is the rate that we want to reduce, things like carbon emissions and everything else that impact the environment. And those targets need to be achieved before management can actually realize their long-term incentives. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Thanks. Yeah, you've said both of you have shared some, some strategic, views on going forward. Thank you. But I'm it is a big topic that is coming into the industry foray, but I don't want to hijack this call. It would be interesting to see, because we know that specific skills are required not only in digitalization, but in renewables, in managing resources efficiently, etc., monitoring and looking at valorization. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities related to skills and jobs that can be created via the circular economy approach in the sector that we think we need to prioritize. because this is a burning issue for the industry, not only from an environmental perspective, but from economical and a futures perspective in terms of sustainability. And you have touched on sustainability. But thank you. Over to you, Praline and Claudette. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Thiru. Very insightful question and opens up a wonderful discussion. But in the spirit of time, and I am aware that there are other questions on the chat, colleagues, but we'd really like to pursue the Mentimeter exercise. And if time permits, we'll go to one or two of the other comments and questions. But can I please ask you to participate in this exercise, because your insights really help us to understand what's happening in the marketplace. We've got 5 questions which we'll take you through quite quickly because we've got 9 minutes left. These are the 5 questions that will appear on your Mentimeter exercise. So can I please ask you to scan the code on your phones? It will take you into the Mentimeter platform, and then Claudette will take us through the 5 questions that appear. So if you are ready, the first question should already be on your screen, which is, what is the benefit of a skills-first approach? If you've got any problems, you can also click on the link that Claudette posted on the chat. So let's get started. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Praline. I'm just going to leave the screen on for a few seconds just for the participants to join. I'm not seeing anyone on the link as yet, so just waiting for that to come through. So colleagues, you can either scan with your phone, scan the QR code with your phone, or you can click on the link in the chat to take you to Menti.
Do we have anyone on as now?
Okay, I do see some comments coming through. I'm going to share my screen, start the presentation. Okay, perfect.
That's wonderful. We've got about, we've only got 3 responses so far, but there's 19 of you that have logged in. So thank you very much for that. Can we have a few more people participating, please? We've got 35 people on the call.
Okay, I do see the comments coming through. So the first question is, what is the benefit of a skills-first approach? So if I read through the comments, it closes skills gaps that organizations face. It future-proofs the organization, better gap coverage, self-improvement and company performance, improved productivity and efficiency, allows for targeted talent development, makes an organization responsive to current needs. It addresses talent shortages, creates value. Okay. Just going to scroll down. It allows for fairness. It recognizes skills are transferable across different contexts. Enables entities to match their skills. So I think, good feedback coming through this, Praline. It's really everything that we've been talking about. And I think that we're all aligned on, what this actually means for us and the organization.
And I really love the comment. It helps in alleviating poverty and unemployment. And for me, if you look at the bigger picture, that's exactly what we should be striving for. How do we upskill, reskill? This is a real investment in our people, our workforce, our economy.
Thanks, Praline. And also just going back to it helps to fill critical job gaps. That's going back to what Puleng was speaking about when it comes to identifying those critical skills. Okay, colleagues, we're going to move on to the next question. So I'm going to change slides, and on your side, you should see the next question come up. So it is, how does a skills-first approach support mining modernization? Okay, so colleagues, just let us know if you're able to see the second screen, and you can put in your comments. Okay, I do see comments coming through. Just going to give it a second. Okay, so adaptation to changing landscape. It taps into diverse talent pools. It is flexible and takes on all newcomers, supports upskilling, reskilling, new skills development. It prevents youth job losses. So Praline, going back to your point around unemployment and poverty, so this will help to prevent youth job losses expected with the introduction of technology. No one is left behind, so everyone will maintain their job and improve company production. It supports dynamic career pathways. I think that's really important. I know organizations are now looking at the different pathways that employees can move towards. So it's no longer your traditional hierarchy, but you can move through different paths within the organization. Okay, I'm going to scroll down. It prioritizes the skills required by the industry, including digitalization, technology adoption, driving efficiencies and new skills, promotes agility again, and it changes the perspective from traditional knowledge to a more technological based or thinking that's required for the future world of work. So I think great responses here, Praline. Okay, I think we can move on to the next question. So question number 3, you will be able to see this on your screen now. So question number 3, what is the key takeaway for you from this webinar? So we'll just give you a few seconds to provide your input. Okay, I do see some answers coming through. Okay, so key takeaways. So value-based talent management is critical to the success of any organization. Our people are our assets and skills is a new currency. So fully agree with that comment. RPL, so important and so overlooked in many organizations. So Puleng, I know you did touch on that as well. Consideration to a value-based talent management framework. So, directly a link to what Dr. Busi spoke about. So really around that talent management framework to really support your employees from attraction right until the time that they leave the organization. Practical example provided by Dr. Shavlala on a stepwise approach and the engagement with different partners, which is critical for implementation. So really working together, partnering with others. We also speak about that public-private partnership, that can really be beneficial to organizations. Okay, the need for EQ. So I know we emphasized on that. So having those EQ skills are critical for the future world of work to enable and to support or to work alongside technology and digital skills. And then just the last one I want to highlight here, that no one gets left behind. We can all learn, unlearn, and gain new skills. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. So question number 4, how can you apply the learnings from this webinar in your development journey? So we're just going to give it a few seconds for you to provide your input. Okay, Praline, I do know that we have 1 minute left. I just want to complete the 2 last questions, colleagues, and then we can move forward. Okay, perfect. So How can we apply the learning? So the stepwise approach shared by the presenter is a practical guide. So it needs to be modified for each organization. So that really gives us a good baseline, the presentation that Praleen and I presented, but as well as Dr. Shabalala on how, why talent management is so important and how we can develop those frameworks and strategies. I think that's definitely can be used by you and further, further modernized for your area. So continuous professional development, continuous learning, skills, not qualification first, and then do not be rigid in your space. The skills are transferable and knowledge is always changing. An important point there. Okay, colleagues, and then last question that you will see on your screen. So please describe the session on developing a skills first approach in one word. So this is going to be a word cloud. So if you can please describe your view on the session in one word. Okay, perfect. I see insightful coming through, engaging, informative, exceptional, improvement. Okay, inspiring. So all positives words coming through. Thank you so much, colleagues, for that. We'll just give it a few more seconds for more responses before we close. Thought-provoking, fantastic, leading excellence. Collaboration is vital. Okay, perfect. I think we can then close with that, Praleen, and just to say thank you to everyone on the call. I think good feedback coming through, and we're really glad that you enjoyed the session and it was interesting and insightful for you. Praleen,
Yes.
I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's just the end of the Mentimeter exercise. I've just got a couple of closing words before we actually end the session. If we could go to the next slide. Colleagues, we don't have a lot of time, but I think there's certainly a couple of key themes, and many of you actually touched on it in the Mentimeter. So I don't want to keep you longer than we committed to, but certainly the power of collaboration coming through, the power of partnerships. We should not be working on any journey in isolation. I can see the collaboration happening between Busi and Puleng at this point in time with regards to their academy development. So certainly some real practical insights. I really liked what you said, Busi, around nourish your skill sets. And if I could leave you with a challenge today, we all start off the new year with some personal goals. So select that one goal that you would like, or select that one skill that you'd like to develop this year and nourish your own skill sets. That's my challenge for you. I liked the idea. One of our participants said, why don't we lead the march to changing the language? So let's not talk about soft skills, let's talk about core skills. And I like that because soft skills are not easy. People think that soft skills are easy to develop. And as you said earlier on, let's talk about technical skills and let's talk about core skills, which are all the people skills as well. And I think some of the other elements coming through from Puleng, which is really around the skills mismatch in the industry at the moment, right? We need to develop the skills that are going to take our careers forward. Puleng, you've got a question, a quick one, please.
No, to add to how you responded to the soft skills, we've changed the lingo from Transnet side. We don't call it soft skills, we call it essential skills. They are essential to the job, and exactly that predicament where people were undermining them and say, because you need resilience, it's an essential skill to do the job. You need collaboration, it's an essential skill. And we have seen people changing and taking it serious. Supervisory development is an essential skill. So I thought, let me also contribute quickly. Thank you.
Absolutely, and 100% spot on. I am very, very on your page with regards to that. The next slide, please, Claudette. I just want to thank every participant for your time. We do apologize, we are 4 minutes over, but thank you for attending the session. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for participating in our Mentimeter exercise. And a very big thank you from the Mandela Mining Precinct and Dr. Shirin Rampersad in particular for leading the SATCAP program. Thank you for the opportunity today for us to share our thoughts and for our speakers, our panelists, Puleng, our speaker, Busi, thank you for your time and your great insights and sharing your experience. So colleagues, on that note, I'd like to conclude today's webinar. Have a fantastic day and take on my challenge, please, to identify that one skill that you'd like to develop in 2026. Thank you all. Cheers. Bye-bye.